If you asked prisoners to choose between serving their jail time in the Owl prison of Russia or death, they would most probably choose the latter. That is how challenging and dangerous the prison is. Movies like The Shawshank Redemption, Escape Plan, and Escape from Alcatraz do not even come close to what happens behind bars. The Polar Owl, also known as Karp Prison, is located in the Karp urban-type settlement near the polar Urals on the bank of the Sob River in the Yamalo-Nenets Autonomous Okrug in the Federal Penal Colony No. 18 of the Federal Penitentiary Service of Russia. This particular institution is one of the 7 special Supermax Special Regimen in Russian terminology corrective labor colonies run by the Federal Penitentiary Service for criminals condemned to life behind bars. The nickname Owl Prison is about the institution's reputation as a home to Russia's well-known criminals, including homicide and organized crime suspects. This jail is particularly famous because of the presence of some of the country's toughest offenders, like corrupt politicians or terrorists. Prisoners undergo rigid schedules and restricted freedoms, characterized by perpetual monitoring at the institution. Moreover, the correctional facility is configured to prevent breakouts while enforcing isolated conditions to the individuals, preventing them from making any contact with the outside community through tough visiting terms, as well as fewer talking opportunities. Former prisoners and human rights groups have documented complaints like overcrowding, insufficient medical attention, and the psychological effects of long durations spent in isolation. The prison system is concerned with regulations and surveillance and harshly penalizes any breaches of rules. Imprisonment in seclusion is a method of punishment often employed to enforce compliance with prisoners and ensure tidiness in the institution. For many years, Owl Prison has housed numerous individuals of interest whose situations have captured the imagination of the public. These range from mafia lords to political dissidents to terrorists. This situation has helped build Owl's legend as the harshest prison facility in all of Russia, an epitome of punishment and deterrence. What is the nature of existence for prisoners serving life sentences? I am sure that many people have this question as it concerns their day-to-day activities inside prison. Polar Owl Prison is located near the Arctic Circle, which accommodates lifelong offenders equivalent to inmates who wait for their deaths in a negative of 50 to 60 degrees Celsius, a permafrost built at the edge of the world, where prisoners await death at negative 50 to 60 degrees Celsius. So what type of prison is Polar Owl Prison known as? How do lifelong criminals housed in this prison spend their days? The Polar Owl Prison, nestled in a canyon in the Ural Mountains, near the cold Arctic Circle, is a secluded place. The world's edge permafrost houses it. Its extreme northern latitude causes its existence amidst extreme temperatures. Nights can be as cold as minus 70 degrees Celsius. It is permanently surrounded by harsh cold conditions. This place is the best location for a prison since there is hardly any human activity in these harsh conditions. Originally, the prison site was once a city. Although the people here claim it's a city, its population is too scanty. Barely 5,000 persons reside within it. Such an isolated place is quite unsuitable for human daily life, and it would be unwise just to leave it undeveloped. On the door of the prison is an owl symbol, and the prison itself, named Polar Star Owl, is near the Arctic Circle because of that. So not only numerous crimes have been committed by criminals in this place, but they can also be referred to as the excrement of society that endangers it. Everybody carries within his shoulder a heavy number of human lives. In the event of poor weather, the lack of local transportation means you can only leave by special boats or planes. Once they get here, arrested criminals are in the custody of specialized people who take them on a long route just to get to the final destination, reducing the chance of them escaping from prison. In its early days, the prison complex was a real grab bag, with economic offenders, forgers, drug barons, and murderers notorious for serious willful tax dodging all brushing shoulders. Nevertheless, over time, there have been fewer and fewer convicts waiting for execution, as most of them received life sentences. Less than 300 criminal offenders are in prison, which is a far smaller number compared to the lives they have taken so far. Many criminals are serial murderers and sexual assaulters of women and children. To ensure that these criminals receive the punishment they deserve for countless crimes that they do, the government sends them to Polar Owl Prison, where their suffering is subjected to both mental and physical torture. Daily life at Polar Owl Prison. In Owl Prison, waiting to be slaughtered criminals are similar to lambs. There is no personal freedom for them, and once they get in, they cease even having the right to kill themselves. They will face eternal solitude up to the moment they die. The implementation of semi-military management is what results in prison life being so boring and monotonous. In addition, there is a specialized personnel who watches everything the inmates do. The inmates cannot make any phone calls, send any messages, or communicate with anyone beyond the prison walls because all means of communication are confiscated, and machines have jammed signals intended for them. The short corridor alone has multiple surveillance cameras. The staff is in control of every move of the detainees 360 degrees without anything blocking the view. They must not reveal any attempt at either killing themselves or running away. Prisoners don't have any access to human rights. They are treated by their guards like objects. They have no water to drink, not enough food most times, and even the food they get is cold and challenging to take. Even the most necessary living and health provisions are missing. In such circumstances, many of them die because there is no one to handle them when they suddenly become sick. Moreover, several prisoners in the Polar Owl prison exhibit different types of violent behaviors. Being offenders who have committed atrocious crimes, they do not change even after being jailed. Some minor issues often cause fights between inmates who eventually kill each other through such trivial problems. Their conflicts sometimes influence the guards as well. You only have to keep quiet and wait without expecting any assistance in that kind of unsafe environment filled with angry souls. Guarding against defiant inmates requires employing the most severe methods to act as a deterrent. This involves catching them within the premises of execution, strapping them to a frame, and administering electric shocks. Even though this method is banned in several areas, it is the sole means through which they can contend with these offenders who have innumerable flaws in them. Being administered electric shock discipline, the bodies of these culprits are misshapen due to electricity, thus suffering a combined physical and mental torment. After experiencing such pain, criminals usually behave well to some extent, thus making it easier for the prison guards to control them. What is ridiculous is that all the prisoners share one bathroom big enough for hundreds of people. Despite this harshness in the jail premises, there are hardly any clean lavatories or bathrooms. Hundreds of people do their urination and defecation there, which makes the environment stink more. This makes it easier for bacteria to grow and reproduce in an area with no clean toilets. Even though they suffer from germs and bacteria, many law offenders regard their lives as a nightmare. The prisoners do not get sympathy from outsiders. Instead, the outsiders reply to their condition in one sentence: pity has to be abhorred. Since so many innocent people have paid for it with their lives, the hands of the prisoners are covered in blood, resulting in the loss and destruction of so many families. Moreover, the people believe that this is a very kind ending for people who have done such terrible things. To develop the local tundra zone and save costs, the government has turned its attention to these criminals and let them build roads. Jobs are assigned to all of them. Factories outside the prison exist where these law offenders are posted to undertake unpaid work and for rehabilitation. These criminals are motivated by allowing them to call their families to behave well. However, added to it is a precondition staying in jail for 10 years. Working outside is a task not readily done by offenders. Only those who commit very minor offenses but perform excellently can work outside prison walls. Their work and rest routines are likewise strictly regimented. They rise sharply at 6 a.m. and are allowed only 15 minutes for cleanup, after which they engage in morning gymnastics. Every meal break lasts 30 minutes, with the rule being that as soon as you finish eating, you should commence working, and as such cannot retire to bed until 10 p.m. Many measures have been put in place by the prison so that these persons will not run away. There are 2 or 3 layers of protective glass installed on the windows within each cell. Those involved in petty crime share a room with 3 or 4 other people, while in another room are confined murderers. Imprisonment is dull. Radios and televisions are occasionally placed there by the staff to enable the inmates to release antagonistic feelings and welcome reformation more warmly. These televisions play nationalistic movies daily as well. Additionally, there are books reserved for offenders, which are used as a calming factor to lower their hot-headedness. Prisoners also do some simple handicrafts, etc., and the products they make are sold by prison authorities. Money collected is distributed to victims' families as a form of compensation for crimes committed by the offenders. The criminals here once did something outrageous to both humans and gods. Believe it or not, one of the criminals was an ogre. He was a mentally sick person and often got scolded by his wife for being too lazy to eat. In the case of argument, his wife unconsciously compared him to a neighbor who demonstrated in every way possible how superior he was at work, and kept on mocking with reproaches about her husband's helplessness and laziness. These words hit hard on that man, and as a result, he had been feeling bitter towards his wife and the nearest male neighbor. One particular day, when he came back from outside and saw his wife joking with the man next door, he suspected that his wife was cheating on him. The wife also saw his husband coming back home looking dissatisfied without any trace of what was the reason for such feelings. Such feelings did not escape the psychologically unstable husband immediately after he noticed them. She ignored the husband's departure as the argument continued escalating, leading to him dashing out of the door. The husband returned with many packets of meat when he came back, his face softening from its earlier tightness. The man uncharacteristically took the initiative and proposed that he should do the cooking. The woman concluded that the man was now transformed and was quite very glad. However, whilst at the dining table, the man's demeanor sent shivers down her spine. He quickly asked her to taste the meat he had roasted. She was compelled to taste, even though the meat appeared spoiled and had an abnormal taste which was not what she customarily ate, looking sour. So as not to discourage her husband's zeal, the wife dutifully partook of it without any signs of nausea. This sight made her husband very happy, such that he cleared the plateful of the sour pork. When some time had passed, the woman told her husband that she had not heard from her former neighbor for a while. The man said this to his wife, realizing that she still cared about other men, and it troubled him so much. The man is in your belly, and you can see how much it's good there when you eat. How is it possible for a husband to let his woman leave him behind after calling the police out of fear for her safety? It was then, at that moment, the man turned against his spouse with everything he had, leading to her death in cold blood, just so he can satisfy his feelings. It was discovered by the police much later that the event had happened, and finally the terrifying ogre was caged in the polar owl hell located at the end of the world. The felons who end up in prison for life term at Polar Owl Prison have zero chances of escaping from there during their life. What awaits them is complete isolation or death, as no relatives would come for their body when they die. They are normally put in wooden coffins and buried in a village nearby. These individuals therefore surrender both their freedom and dignity upon admission into Polar Owl Prison, since they become objects of scorn forever. These folks are not worth sympathizing with. They brought their fate upon themselves. Cherish life but never get involved in any criminal activity. This is what we can learn from their end. Prisoners from Moscow are either sent there by train or plane. The train trip takes 2 days, but by plane, it's only 3 hours. Upon arrival, motor transport arrives to take the prisoners away and cross the Obi River by ferry, after which they are driven to the Polar Owl. The Polar Owl colony is self-sufficient and encompasses a boiler house, bakery, diesel power unit, canteen, and fabrication sections for the production of cinder blocks and crushed stone. It also has marble, sewing, tailoring machine, and carpentry shops. The offenders provide themselves and the surrounding towns with the necessary items. They also breed birds and pigs. Life there is not very pleasant. In a year, convicts receive 1 parcel only and are allowed to wander about in a small cage for 90 minutes a day. Once a week they can take a shower for 10 minutes. A bed, table, bedside table, clothes shelf for food storage, toilet article shelf, water tank, clothes hanger, and a toilet are arranged in the cells. During the day, prisoners are not allowed to use the bed for rest while restricted to communicating with their cellmates under a hutch of whispers. Upon exiting their cells, a body search is a must, and all their answers must be to the guards saying, "Yes, Citizen Chief." They move around while handcuffed and with bodies bent over. Men walking along or during a bathhouse trip shouldn't talk. Now let's talk about Polar Owl's most famous chess prisoner. Alexander Yuryevich Pichushkin was born on April 9, 1974. He is better known as the chessboard killer. He was a serial killer who did evil things. While Claude F. Bolgood I only smacked his mom's head once with a hammer, Pichushkin did it to more than 20. Despite uncertainties surrounding their number, it is estimated that he had 48 to 60 victims from 1992 to 2006 in southwest Moscow's Bitsa Park, where the majority of their bodies were discovered. Pichushkin was an outgoing child in his early years, however. That changed when he fell from the swing backward, thereby hitting his head with the same swing. It has been hypothesized that the impact of the ground on his forehead could have resulted in impairment of the frontal cortex, leading to emotional outbursts characterized by poor self-regulation and aggression as some symptoms. Since Pichushkin was still a child, the damage would have been more severe, as a child's forehead provides only a fraction of the protection for the brain compared to an adult's. He was often angry and irritable since the accident. Thus, his mother took him to a school for children with learning disabilities. Before being transferred, other children in the same school used to physically and verbally abuse him, calling him a retard. This kind of behavior increased his anger and hostility. When Pichushkin was a small boy, his grandfather noticed that he was gifted. The old man also realized the boy was not given enough home exercises due to an extreme disability-focused environment around him during his school hours. This was why he allowed the child to live at his place, so he would do more thinking beyond classroom boundaries. Chess became his favorite game, and soon he started playing with other people in the public park. It was discovered that Pichushkin was quite talented at it, and his aggression found an outlet in this game. The bullying went on sustainedly in public school throughout his teenage years, and he suffered an emotional jolt when his grandfather passed away, forcing him back to his mother's place. There he started drinking generous amounts of vodka. He continued playing chess, aligning with older men who drank vodka too. Whenever he knew that he would meet up with kids, Pichushkin would always carry a video camera along with him and start to threaten them. In one such case, he picked a young child by one leg and told him that he was in Pichushkin power and that he was going to throw him to death out of the window. When he was 18 years old, Pichushkin made his first kill on July 27, 1992. The murdered person was a schoolmate of Pichushkin, and the former invited him for a murder task. Before killing his former schoolmate, he disclosed that he wanted to kill someone and proposed a partnership, on suspicion that his counterpart was not serious in his suggestion to kill someone. Pichushkin ended up killing him as an alternative. In 2001, Pichushkin increased his criminal activity, targeting chiefly old homeless men by enticing them with vodka. After drinking together, he'd murder them by striking them on the head with a hammer, after which he'd throw their bodies into park drains. Thereafter, the vodka bottle was always found inside their skull's wound, which marked his signature. In the end, this stopped being enough for him. His prey included boys, infants, and females all the time. Usually he struck from behind so that his garments could remain unsoiled and the victim caught unaware. He last killed a woman aged 36 in June 2006. A metro ticket was discovered in her possession during the discovery of her remains, which compelled law enforcement to delve into the surveillance camera tapes of the Moscow tube system as a result. They were seen together on the platform in video footage from the Moscow metro system a short time before she died. Alongside this information, Pichushkin confessed to police officers, claiming he murdered 64 individuals with a motive of replicating the squares present in chessboards, yet reported otherwise, after saying he would have gone on killing people forever if he wasn't apprehended. Pichushkin, after the arrest, led the police to the places where most of his murders were committed and clearly described how he did it. He declared that he felt like God while killing his victims. "I killed just for one reason in all cases. I killed to exist, because whenever you kill a person you still would like to survive, and I can tell without hesitation that unless someone is murdered, my life would be empty like yours if it lacks food. It seemed to me I was not only their father but also their savior, because they followed me somewhere else, leading them into another world through which they passed when they died." Pichushkin was discovered to be of sound mind, but had antisocial and narcissistic personality disorders. To ensure his safety throughout his trial, Pichushkin was placed in a glass box. He was found guilty of 49 counts of murder and 3 of attempted murder by a judge in October 2007. Therefore, he pleaded with the higher authority for the inclusion of 11 more persons into the death list, raising the number claimed by him significantly to 60 dead persons and 3 survivors in total. Playing chess in the park offers him an opportunity to get close to his goals, because they are part and parcel of the community that plays this particular game, about half of them being known to him through it. He would use an excuse related to some dead dog he has buried there secretly while drinking to take them completely off guard before executing them. Though he never raped his victims, he found pleasure in bashing their skulls with a hammer, then stuffing the holes with empty vodka bottles and twigs, craving to hear the sound of a skull being cracked open. Some of them he strangled, while others he shot using his homemade pipe pistol. He would often throw their lifeless bodies into the sewer lines, sometimes when the victims were still breathing. The fate of many of them remains unknown. He said that he avoided reading the Bible, never prayed to God, and never would. He considered those who give their lives by their actions for the Russian state as a weakling. It was also noted that the man voted in all elections without exception. He enjoyed killing people he knew much more than others. There was no remorse in him for the killings. Throughout time, there have been several other notorious inmates located in the Owl Prison, also known as Penal Colony No. 6. Such persons have always been known for making their names from high-profile crimes, organized crimes, significant political influence, and social status. Here are some of the most famous inmates known to have been held at this facility. 1. Alexander Elistratov, born 1954. In 2011, Alexander Elistratov was fundamentally recognized for the drama-marked escape attempt he made that turned out to be unsuccessful in the end. Elistratov was doing a long time in jail for more than one violent crime, when it appeared impossible to locate him, temporarily eluding the securities of a prison in which he was kept. It was also a clear indication that even those who run prisons find it difficult to keep order among their prisoners, which should be corrected. The failed escape led to heightened security measures and reinforced Owl Prison's reputation as a facility where escape is nearly impossible. 2. Alexander Greba. Limited information regarding Alexander Greba is available as compared to some other inmates. Alexander Greba is considered as one of the most dangerous and disruptive offenders in Owl Prison, and his information is scarce. Because Alexander Greba was involved in violent crimes as well as organized crimes, he was taken there to ensure no contact with the outside world. 3. Yevgeny Kolesnikov, 1984 to 2016. Yevgeny Kolesnikov was a notorious criminal. His life and death in Owl Prison drew attention to the harsh conditions of the Russian penal system. He was serving a sentence for several violent offenses, but there were claims that he suffered mistreatment while he was being detained and that he didn't receive enough medical assistance. In 2016, Kolesnikov's death gave rise to concerns about the well-being of prisoners and the harsh conditions in Owl and other maximum security prisons. 4. Sergei Osipenko. Sergei Osipenko, who is another prisoner at Owl Prison, portrays a criminal behavior type found among inmates at Owl Prison. He was a key figure in organized crime, and his imprisonment signifies Russia's efforts to curb criminal networks. This provides an account of the incarceration of such individuals in prisons like Owl Prison. 5. Ivan Panchenko. One of the more closely watched inmates is Ivan Panchenko, who has spent considerable time in the Owl Prison for serious crimes, including violent offenses. This well-known center has some of the highest security measures and strictest control mechanisms when it comes to people who break laws while inside its walls. An example of strict control and high vigilance over the inmates lives in this infamous facility is his story. The prison has been known as a place where Russia confines some of its most dangerous criminals facing high-profile crimes. The security of this facility is very tight with harsh conditions that mirror the prevailing toughest situations experienced in Russia's correctional facilities, majorly concerning how political critics are handled, top mafia members, and people engaged in serious criminal activities. Many other reputedly dangerous individuals grace Russia's most secure penal institutions, which are characterized by rigorous security measures, harsh living conditions, and more containment-focused rather than rehabilitative elements. Here are some of the most notable high-security prisons in Russia. 1. Black Dolphin Prison. Soliletsк is where Black Dolphin Prison, also called Penal Colony No. 6, is situated. This facility is one of Russia's oldest and most notorious prisons since the 18th century. The only people who get arrested and imprisoned are serial killers, terrorists, and cannibals because they are considered the most dangerous criminals. 2. White Swan Prison. Solikamsk Prison. Another notable high-security facility in Solikamsk, Perm Krai, is White Swan, which is popularly recognized for its strict administration and dangerous inmates. The reason it was named like this is because prisoners were forced to walk in a bent-over manner, keeping their eyes on the ground, which was similar to a swan's behavior. 3. Vladimir Central Prison. The Central Prison Vladimir is among Russia's renowned goals that lie in Vladimir Oblast. It was built in 1783 and has a long-standing tradition of accommodating revolutionaries and dangerous felons. 4. Burka Prison. Russia is known, among other things, for having some very old and infamous incarceration centers, such as the Burka Prison in Moscow, which is among these centers. Situated in Moscow, Burka Prison is one of the oldest and most dreaded Russian detention places. Although it is not meant for long-term criminals, it is popularly known because it is always full beyond its capacity limit, and inmates' living conditions are very tough. 5. Matrosskaya Tishina. Matrosskaya Tishina, which houses prominent detainees and has rigid conditions, is also situated in Moscow. In the Owl Prison, prisoners' health status has captured the attention of people who fight for the rights of human beings. It has also been accused of torture and infringements on the laws provided for in the Bills of Human Rights. This has led to questions over how the institution is run within the country, while international bodies demand major reforms and increased supervision within the walls of prison institutions. Politicians have often pushed for reform in Russia, but the government has usually resisted such attempts through its insistence that the penitentiary system is essential for ensuring security. It is this veil of secrecy in Owl Prison and other maximum security correctional facilities that impedes confirmation of allegations and efforts aimed at genuine transformation. The incidents at Russia's Owl Prison reflect broader issues within the country's penal system, including human rights abuses, lack of transparency, and inadequate conditions. While the prison's role in housing dangerous criminals is recognized, the treatment of inmates and the handling of internal incidents continue to raise significant ethical and legal concerns. Addressing these issues requires a balanced approach that ensures security while respecting the fundamental rights of those incarcerated. Russia's Owl prison has witnessed many situations underlining its harsh environment and controversial practices. The challenges associated with handling inmates and maintaining peace within the facility remain central themes in addition to various human rights violations. 1. Hunger strikes. At Owl Prison, several hunger strikes have been reported with inmates protesting against bad living conditions, lack of enough medication care, and abusive treatment by prison staff. One of the most significant hunger strikes happened in 2015 when some prisoners groups stopped eating for weeks, demanding better conditions and stopping torturing and inhuman treatment. 2. Torture and abuse allegations. Every so often, allegations of torture and maltreatment at the Owl Prison emerge. There have been instances where inmates or human rights groups raise matters of beatings and psychological torture. As a means of punishment, they mention solitary confinement among others. However, it is worth nothing, as here was once this inmate who alleged that he used to be frequently assaulted and sleep deprived, for instance, just to punish him. 3. Death of inmates. The authorities reported that several prisoners have died in unclear circumstances. While some deaths were explained as natural or accidental occurrences, human rights activists believe that they were either killed or died due to carelessness. Recently, a prisoner passed away, causing widespread anger after allegations emerged that he hadn't received important medical attention for a serious illness, thereby raising concerns over the quality of health providers in jail. 4. Riots and unrest. There have been riots and violent confrontations between detainees and prison staff at Owl Prison on some occasions. These events are usually caused by friction that may exist due to living standards, what is seen as unfair practices, and stern penalties that are enforced by the authorities from time to time. One such disturbance worth mentioning took place in 2013, where there were numerous casualties besides damaging various facilities within its premises, leading to closure for some time, as well as tightened security at all entry points of the penitentiary. 5. Escape attempts. Despite the high security nature of the prison, there have been cases of escape attempts. Such occurrences are usually acts of desperation on the part of prisoners who want to get away from harsh situations. In the year 2021, it was reported that some inmates dared try escaping through a tunneling system, but failed their mission, as well as faced harsh penalties thereafter, thus intensifying security within that facility. Human rights organizations have criticized the events at Owl Prison and asked for better conditions, a higher level of transparency, as well as more responsibility over the affairs occurring there. Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have both pointed out that some changes need to be made and asked the Russian government to let independent teams inspect the facility. It has been argued that the Russian government should consider revising its position on enforcing severe punishment against the most dangerous criminals who live within its territory. According to official reactions that come from Owl Prison management, it is important not to allow chaos and unrest among detainees, even if there may arise unproven claims criticizing maltreatment or other serious allegations. Owl Prison, Penal Colony No. 6, continues to be one of Russia's most feared prisons and serves as a grim reminder of the realities of crime and punishment in that country. It is an institution where violent offenders are locked up to contain them and prevent further acts of violence, thus underscoring the difficulties Russia currently encounters when trying to blend keeping law and order with respecting individuals' rights.